Welcome to KC's review of Stranding. If you dig it, any likes or subs would be hugely appreciated. Now, with that out of the way, let's just dig into it. Now, there is a select group of game designers or directors who could own the label of the elite. But for me, the likes of Bioshock's Ken Levine stand out, also the Houser brothers. Even though I don't really like Grand Theft Auto, what makes them all special is that they use their talents to not only create engrossing worlds, but also explore the best and worst of the human condition. Now, obviously, considering the game we're talking about, another who must fall into this group is Hideo Kojima. Now, Kojima has always had a whiff of politics in his game. His latest game, Death Stranding, I would argue is no different. It blatantly says America is a broken country, but with the same breath explores how human connection and working together is the only way to rebuild a society ravaged by confusion and isolationism. So that seems to be Kojima's start, but what does it all add up to? What is actually Death Stranding? Death Stranding, purely viewed in the mechanical gameplay sense, is best summed up as a third-person, open-world traversal and action game with deep online social integration. So yeah, not the easiest thing to just put into a cubbyhole, but this is a unique game, so it needs a unique sort of review so you guys actually understand how it all works. How it unpacks is like this. Earth as we know it has ended, as the divide between the living and the dead has been blurred. In a way, we all now occupy the same space. Kinda modern America is now an array of isolated cities, kept apart by the ghostly horrors called BTs that occupy the open world. Now, Sam, played by Norman Reedus, who is Daryl out of the Walking Dead TV show, plays, well, gruff, mumbling Daryl. But his name is Sam, and he is one of the few who have dooms, and he can actually sense the BTs and survive in the outer lands. His job is to make his way across America, reconnecting these cities to the network so we can all work together again, and also deliver a shitload of parcels akin to some sort of post-apocalyptic Postman Pat simulator. That's about all I'm willing to say though, story-wise, is I don't want to spoil anything. The story is good. It just takes a wee bit of processing as you go to keep up with all the terminology. So hopefully you have a broad understanding why Sam is walking across river and down dale. It's to connect cities and communities with each other. But how does this all become an engaging game? Well, this is where opinion will likely split for many on the interwebs. This game is essentially built entirely around a sort of courier or fetch quest loop. The only game I could see real similarities to in the basic premise of the gameplay was MudRunner. MudRunner, that weird driving game you like, Browncoat? Really? Yes, MudRunner, which granted is far simpler in setup, but it's about traversing rough terrain to deliver stuff. In both games, how I go about doing this is up to me, all based on my assessment of the equipment available, the terrain to cross, and what's the most efficient method. So yeah, MudRunner. So Sam is given a task to navigate to a remote city or installation to deliver or collect something. I had to review the order. Can it get wet? Is it fragile, etc.? What's the terrain like? Will I need to carry ladders? Will I need guns? Can I take a vehicle? Are there enemies that I'll need to work around? Then, while at the depot, I'll manufacture the right support equipment, load the items into my backpack so it's stable, and then set off on my plotted course. Once walking or later driving, moment-to-moment gameplay is about picking Sam's way across unforgiving terrain. The vehicles that come later are not really for off-road generally. but they do the job, and you can sort of brute force them across rocks and banks, but the animations just go completely haywire. But they're still usable. Ideally, building infrastructure with resources is the best way to speed up repeated delivery access. Raiding scavenger camps occupied by mules is a quick way to get crafting resources, but it's high risk. As is any of the areas full of the horrifying BTs. Both can be passed with the help of Sam's handy chest-mounted baby-powered scanner called BB, or a bridge baby, at least until some hard-hitting weaponry gets unlocked later in the game. Stealth and avoidance is generally the best option. Like I said, this is perhaps not going to appeal to everyone. Combat is a side feature really, that for the most part can be completely avoided with good planning and stealth. In fact, I didn't fire a gun in the first 15 hours of the game. That said, the way combat and the death mechanics are implemented is so refreshing, and when it comes to fighting the BTs, really cinematic. And also, it's quite forgiving, so it's not a real burden when you do get involved in some form of combat. It's fun, which is what it should be, but it's just a rare occurrence. It's certainly not the main driving feature of the game. Frankly, I loved this aspect. Loved it. I didn't want just another shooter. I felt very much at home reviewing maps, looking at gradients and terrain, and planning a route and completing my delivery like I was Kevin Costner in The Postman.
The Postman!
The constant underlying narrative, though, is around reconnecting, working together, and that is not just limited to the game's story. The social online aspect is massive, and I'm not sure I like it though. The Strand system is, in simple terms, other people's games bleeding through into your game world. So I went to cross a river, but found a ladder left by another gamer. Warning signs, lost cargo, even vehicles and later highways that have been left or constructed by other gamers in their game. As a reward for building and sharing items in the world, I dished out and earned likes. Literally little Facebook looking likes. They are the driving currency of the game like XP. But, and here's another wee gem from Kojima, unlike other currencies, metal, resin, ceramics, etc., likes have zero value. Just like in the real world, we give likes, we get likes, but what do they do? Except make some obligatory number go up. I like the silliness of how likes are up front, but useless. But this is a shared world idea, and it ripped me out of the experience and destroyed the amazing yet fleeting moments of isolation. I wanted more of that feeling of it being me against this hard world. But I accept that maybe that's the point, isn't it? Connection, cooperation with strangers, building links together. It's clever. It's the next major step on from the Dark Souls messages system. But for me, albeit very helpful, it broke the game world's mystery. Walking along and seeing fluoro signs warning me there's BTs ahead or a steep cliff kind of took the mystery out of what I was looking to experience for myself. This is Kojima's first big title that wasn't a Metal Gear Solid. Now, it's not as batshit crazy as Metal Gear Solid, but it is still full of brooding characters and melodrama. In fact, some of Metal Gear Solid 5's DNA is very clearly visible under the hood, from the hyper busy menus to the clunky way the story is delivered outside of cutscenes, and even the character movement. But the overarching canon is tidier than a Metal Gear game. Sure, it still has forced double entendre names for everything, and I had to pay attention to every bit of dialogue to keep up, but it was still easier to get a handle on what was going on and why than any Metal Gear Solid game I've played. The Decima engine that's been loaned out by Gorilla is stunning, and the unique gameplay is very refreshing, but I will openly admit many may not feel this way. It's a big game with a lot of inventory management and with a big tail for gamers who want to keep building stuff. But there is also a sizable mid-game grind at about 20 hours in. My main issue though is the shared world construction and cooperation. It seems to be a juxtaposition to the game's strongest element, which is the feeling of isolation. But once again, I have to accept that I think that's the point. Look, I love this game, quirks and all. I love the underlying tone and the deeper meanings hidden at every turn. The fresh take on what death and an afterlife looks like just felt so new. Death Stranding is a AAA open world adventure game with a clever, fresh take on pretty much every modern third-person action game mechanic created in the last 20 years. It was just so refreshing to play something that was just new for a change. I really liked it. Alright team, well that's enough from me. Hopefully you've got a picture of what this game is about without spoiling anything. Please remember to swing past Koru-Cottage.com to check out the rest of our stuff, and maybe even consider giving us a like or a sub. Alright, thanks very much.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Early